Welcome to Envisioned Broadcasting Radio, your station for empowerment, music, and talk radio. EB Radio presents Empower Hour with Jaresha. A show that shares the stories behind the journeys of leaders, influencers, and motivators. The Empower Hour with Jaresha begins now.
Hello and welcome to Empower Hour with Jaresha. I am your host, Jaresha Moore-Smith, and a little bit about myself. I am a best-selling author with over 19 years of combined experience in finance, education, healthcare, business management, and sales, CEO and founder of Empower on Purpose, LLC, where we provide leadership training and personal professional coaching and consulting services, certified coach, speaker, and trainer with the John Maxwell team, and owner of Envision Broadcasting Radio Station. So if this is your first time tuning in, I just want to say I am super happy that you're tuning into the show. I want you to know that I believe that you have the power to be great, have great, and do great. You just have to be willing to unleash your greatness and take action. So on this show, I speak with leaders, motivators, and influencers who want to share their stories and journeys to empower the world for growth and success. And every week, we take a look at an empowerment quote that we are pondering and how it can help us, how it can truly help empower us for success. So this week, I truly hope you are ready for the empowerment quote this week. It simply says, "Don't dream it, be it," by Richard O'Brien. Now, to me, this is it's just so powerful. And let me tell you why. There is no doubt that we have dreams from the time we are kids. You know, we start dreaming about what we want to be and do and have in life. And as we get older, life happens, right? Most of us, you know, our dreams, it seems like they get further and further and further away. But what is truly stopping you from being it? What has stopped you from taking that dream and making it a reality? Don't dream it, be it. I love that. I love it, love it, love it. So let me explain a little bit about what this truly means to me. This means that, you know, that dream that, you know, we had, as you may have had as a young woman or a young man, you need to be it and take action on it. So when I was a teenager, I had made it up in my mind that I was going to have my own business. You know, I knew that I wanted to have my own business. I just had no idea I had no idea what the business was going to be or how I was going to do it. But I knew that I wanted to be my own boss. And I knew that, you know, that was the life that I wanted for myself. And I knew all this as a teenager. So you fast forward years and years later, I found myself writing down my dreams again and really trying to figure out my life. And you know how we do. When we have gotten the degrees and you know, maybe you've done the corporate world thing, and yet we feel like there is something more. I need more. I need to help more. I need to do more of what I love doing. And for me, that was and is helping others. It's adding value to others, helping others grow and succeed. So I stopped dreaming about it and started being about it. I started taking the action necessary to own my own business. We all know that life, you know, it's going to knock you down. But let me tell you this. You have to get back up. And sometimes you have to get back up and get back up again and get back up again. But each time, I promise you, it's going to make you stronger. So it's Women's Month, and I know there are many, many women out there listening. And for whatever reason, maybe you have stopped dreaming because of life and of kids. And trust me, I know. I have kids of my own, and I know how life can just, seem to get in the way of our dreams. But let me tell you this. It is not the time to stop dreaming and stop being. I believe it's your time right now. It's your time to do, be, and have what you want in life. So let's empower each other, and let's do this thing, y'all. Let's get it, and let's go. It's time to be it. And it's time to take action. And let me tell you, be it requires getting disciplined about what you need to do. Be it requires getting rid of those distractions and those things that no longer serve you or your purpose. Be it requires you to do something different. Be it requires your greatness. Again, I say to you, it is your time to do what you've been wanting to do to achieve your goals. So let's get it and let's go. You got this. We got this. So, okay, amazing people. Let's get right to it as we're talking about how we got this, and I'm so excited to share tonight my special guest this evening. She is absolutely amazing, Leah Forney. I am so excited to have her on the show, and let me tell you a little bit about Leah. She is a daughter, granddaughter, sister, friend, a pre-licensed marriage and family therapist are some of the hats that Leah Forney wears. A native of Queens, New York, who is currently residing in Maryland, writing and speaking came natural to her. Leah Forney is the oldest girl of 6 siblings. She grew up without her mother and father raising her. She learned early on the importance of having a relationship with Jesus Christ from her maternal grandmother who raised her in the church. Leah's love for writing came at a young age when she would pen poems to release the pain she felt from not having her parents in her life. Never knowing where her writings would take her, Leah penned her first book. As she continues to accept the calling that God has placed on her life, Leah is open to seeing where her gifts and talents will take her. She has released 7 books over the last 4 years. She is a podcast host of Hey Queen Thrive. She has been blessed to be featured on 45 different media publications, including but not limited to internally streamed Decide to Move podcast and the CEO Wife Experience podcast. I am so excited to have Leah on the show this evening. How are you, Leah?
Hi, Jaresha. I'm good. How are you?
I am doing amazing. I'm super excited. So, of course, I just shared some of your bio, and you are amazing and doing some amazing things. Please share a little bit more about yourself with everyone.
Yeah, it's funny. Every time I hear my bio read, I sit back and I think, like, who are they reading about or who are they talking about? So it always catches me off guard. But, yeah, as you said, I am a native of Queens, New York, but I do currently reside in Maryland. And so I have been what they call today an authorpreneur for the last 4 years. And this year I just released my 7th book that is actually releasing in a couple of weeks. And so everything else you said, podcast host, I continue to interview on multiple media platforms, and that's pretty much who Leah Forney is.
Yes, I love it. So as you mentioned, you are an author. Please share some of, your writings and what has, really somewhat what's inspired you as an author.
Yeah, so I actually started writing at a very young age. My grandmother had reminded me maybe a couple of years ago, we were having a conversation about how I started writing maybe around the age of 7 or 8. And I actually would just write little poems to Jesus or pen my little Christmas list that I wanted to Santa. But I was always writing. My grandma told me, she was like, you were always writing. And so writing was an escape for me. I grew up being raised by my maternal grandmother and my aunt because my mom was a drug addict since I was 2 years old. And my dad, he battled with alcoholism and was in and out of prison. So growing up, feeling different, seeing different and being different, because I was probably one of few in my neighborhood who didn't come from a two-parent household. So writing was a way of escape. It was the place that I went to like really be imaginative and creative. And I remember as a young child writing who I thought my parents were. Because my grandmother, she did a lot of protecting. She didn't necessarily tell us, me and my siblings, why our parents weren't around. She hid that for a very long time. So when people would ask, about my parents, I always had these elaborate stories about who my parents were. And so that's kind of how I got into writing. Fast forward to 2017 was probably the first time that I said, I think I want to write a book. And I really don't know where that idea came from. It just kind of came from out of nowhere. So I connected with a really good friend of mine, Ruth Griffin, who was a published author. She also had a small press publishing company, and we went to church together. And so we sat down and had a conversation, and I was like, I think I want to write a book. And so she was like, okay, well, what do you want to write about? And I told her, I just want to tell my story. And so that's how Unapologetically Me, my very first book, was actually birthed. It was me telling the story about growing up without my mom and dad and kind of the struggles that I went through emotionally. And then how I had a love-hate relationship with my parents, but I also saw them as heroes, which was actually weird because I didn't really have them. But as a child, I didn't want nobody to tell me anything bad about my parents. So in my mind, they were like superheroes. So that was the beginning of the writing journey. And Lord knows I did not think 4 years later, 7 books later, I would still be writing and telling parts of my story.
Oh, that is truly amazing. And so I will say that I definitely can understand how writing could be therapeutic. And, it's been, I can say that it's definitely been therapeutic for me over the years as well. And I think that I never really understood, probably at a young age when I would write, and then fast forward, with journaling, and how I even encourage others to start journaling. Even if it starts with a brain dump, take that time to just get everything that's in your head on paper. And then, start writing, start journaling, and how much that can truly help us. So it's truly amazing to hear about, one, not just how you, start at a young age, because I definitely think that it's so important to encourage, our kids and whatever age you may be to really, pull out that notebook and start writing. And, you just never know what that may transition to, what that may turn into. So with, looking back on over the years and you writing, all of those books, which to me, 7 books, that's truly, truly, truly amazing. So I just want to commend you for that. But at the same time, what would you tell those that are listening that, that maybe are wanting to share their story, or, what advice would you give to those that, may say one day, I would love to, be an author and start writing? What advice would you give those that are listening now that may want to travel down the same path that you have as an author?
Yeah, so there's a few things that come to mind when I think about that. So I am a nonfiction author, and so for those who don't know what that is, it's basically everything that I write is true life events. It's steered from my own personal experiences. And so what I say to individuals who would want to share their own personal story, the first thing I say is make sure you've made peace with your story. And I say that because a lot of times we want to tell our story and we're either still healing from our story or our story is still affecting us. And so the last thing you want to do is write this amazing book, get in front of your targeted audience, and then have a meltdown, right? Like you want to make sure that you can get in front of your audience and stand and be victorious and speak from the place of like, been there, done that. So that's the first thing that I would say. The second thing I would probably say is make sure you get clear about your messaging. A lot of times I work with people who are aspiring authors and they will say, oh, I want to write a book about my pain. And I always have to kind of like peel back the layers of that and say, okay, let's break that down. What exactly about your pain do you want to share? And I find that a lot of aspiring authors where they get stuck is being clear about their message and then being clear about who they're trying to reach with their message. And so those are the things that I would say if you're going to get started, definitely do those three things. And then the last thing I would say is start writing. I tell people you can get a lot accomplished in 15 minutes. So for those who say, oh, I don't have enough time, I wear a million and one hats, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm this, I'm that, I don't have the time, set the timer for 15 minutes, give yourself a writing goal, and then start writing because this is for you. You getting your story out, getting your book out is going to be therapeutic and transformational for you, but it's also for your audience because somebody needs to hear something from you to share how they can overcome or how they can get out of their situation as well.
Absolutely. That's so good. That is so good. And those are so many nuggets that I really hope that everyone that's listening that you got those nuggets because that is so, so good. I think that we don't realize that, when we have our stories and, you look at the journeys that we've been through, that someone else needs to hear that. So as you mentioned, yes, we want to get that information out. We want to, tell our story. And, you mentioned about being clear about the message and really understanding who your audience is, and then having that writing goal. And I'll tell you that one of the things that I know has, kind of been a challenge or the most difficult for me with the writing, it is that, one, not just knowing who your audience is, but we make up so many excuses as to why we can't do it, be and have what we want. And especially for those that are like, oh, my goodness, I have all these things to do. I don't have time to, sit down and write. And like you said, all you have to do is just start writing. That timer tip is so important because all you have to do is just set a goal. It can be, I'm going to write 500 to 1,000 words today. That's it. And then like you said, set that timer and just begin writing. It's nothing to it but to do it, right? So that is so good. I love the fact that you shared that because I think so many of us really need to hear that, and especially those that are aspiring authors as well. So, of course, we shared that you are a podcast host. So I would love it if you would share more about your podcast and then also, about some of the other podcasts that you've been featured on as well. So please tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I'm a podcast host of Hey Queen Thrive, and it's actually a really funny story how that name came about because I had been contemplating where I wanted to take my business, my brand, going into 2021. I was like, I always wanted to do podcasting. I enjoy being on other people's podcasts and on radio, and I was like, okay, I want to start a podcast, but I was stuck on a name. I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to name this. And then one day, I decided to take a nap. Go figure. So I take a nap, and as I'm asleep, the Holy Spirit reveals to me, Hey Queen Thrive. And I woke up, and it just kept ringing in my spirit. And it was funny because I remember saying, out loud, like, really, Lord, like, this the most inconvenient time, you decide to drop the name because I could not figure it out. And so Hey Queen Thrive for me was an opportunity to create a platform to allow other, dope, inspiring women an opportunity on my platform, because I get the opportunities to be featured on other people's platforms all the time. And I wanted to create a space where we can talk about everything from womanhood to life issues to entrepreneurship. And when it got started back in January, I was like, oh, Lord, I don't know who to get on my podcast. And God was like, yeah, you do. Because you have all these friends and these connections and these colleagues. And I remember just started reaching out to people. And I'm like, hey, I'm doing a podcast. Can I get you as an expert? And they were like, yes. So I learned in that moment that really when you tap into purpose and you tap into what God wants you to do, that it's effortless, that it's not a struggle, as long as you're really just making sure that you're in tune with what he wants you to do. And so that's how Hey Queen Thrive got started. And so, but some of the other podcasts that I've been blessed to be on is like Decide to Move with Monica Bijou. That's all about entrepreneurship. And I've been able to share my entrepreneurship journey, the CEO Wife Experience with Tamara Mitchell Davis. That's another great podcast. It's just about being a boss and being a CEO. And I've gotten to share kind of how I've gotten through 4 years later, 7 books. And then just recently I was on Conversations with Erica Brown. So I've been able to get on a lot of different platforms. And one of the things that I say, especially to new entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs, is don't be afraid to reach out to the people you know. I think a lot of times we think that when we network and we connect and we collaborate, we're supposed to go for the high-hanging fruit first, right? Like you want to be on the biggest celebrities podcast. And sometimes the blessing is being on those small press, small business podcasts that you will be surprised how you will build your business from. I've gotten clients and coaching clients from just being on other people's podcasts that all of a sudden somebody wanted to write a book and immediately they're like, oh, Leah, let me reach out to her. Hey, I want to send somebody your way who wants to write a book.
That's good. That's so good. I love it. I absolutely love it. Let me just say that I love the name Hey Queen Thrive. I love it, love it, love it. Absolutely. That's just so amazing. And even how you said that when you tap into your purpose, you just don't know how, the opportunities God is really going to send your way. And similar to yourself, that was kind of how Empower Hour with Jaresha was born as well. So I absolutely love that. You mentioned you're focused on the calling that God has placed on your life. How do you keep your mind and life, truly open to those opportunities for whatever journey life purpose leads to you?
Yeah, so I truly believe in the power of prayer. I begin my day and start my day in prayer and meditation. And I just learned to really just be still enough to hear what he has to say, but then I've also learned the importance of being obedient. And I tell you, I learned that lesson on obedience in a very interesting way, because there was a time in my life where God was calling me to really step forward into some things in ministry and church, and I was just fearful. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not, just kind of pushing up against what he was calling me to do. And I watched as he replaced me. Like, literally, it was one of those, like, oh, okay, if you don't want to do it, no problem. I'll find somebody else to do it. And I will tell you no lies, Jaresha, when that happened to me, it rocked me to my core, because I'm sitting here, like, watching this person get all these accolades, get all this promotion, get all this shine, and I'm kicking myself because I'm thinking that's supposed to be me. And I learned then that it's so important to be obedient. So the Bible is very clear, obedience is better than sacrifice. And since that day, all those many years ago, I've decided that, you know what, if he's leading me, if this is what he wants me to do, then I'm cool with it. Because one thing I know about God is that he's never going to make me look bad, because then it makes him look bad. So if he is calling me to do this, then I just have to trust that it's the time to do it, it's the season to do it, it's the hour to do it. But then also, like I tell people, if God gives you the plan and the vision, trust that he already has the provision lined up. So even those that inspired to write books, I tell people all the time, if God is leading you to write the book, trust that he knows that you need the money to get it produced. He knows you need the right editor to get it edited. He knows that you need the right connections. So you just have to be obedient and do what it is that he's telling you to do, and know that he already has the connections, the provision, the finances lined up for you to get it done.
Absolutely. That's so good. And I completely agree with you 150%, because when God opens those doors of opportunity, I always say that, he opens the doors for us. We just have to be ready to walk through and have faith, without fear that he got us every step of the way. He brought us to it. He's going to lead us through it. So I completely agree with that 150%. Yes, yes, yes. So when you look back over, the years, what's the one thing that if, you could say, if I had only known this, I wish I had known this, what's that one thing that, you wish you had known when you first started?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know what? I think for me it would be, I wouldn't have cared so much about what other people thought. Because I think for me, especially from growing up, how I grew up, I really relied on people for validation. And now I've grown to this place where as long as God is good with me, I'm good. And so looking back, I feel like if I could do a lot of my life all over again, I would not have relied so heavily on the validation and the praise of people. Because, people, 1 minute they're with you, next minute they're not. And so a lot of my identity and a lot of just what I thought made me was centered around people, places, and things. And I'll tell you a story. When I started therapy about 3 years ago after going through a tragic loss, I remember my therapist asking me one question. And she said, Leah, have you ever been happy? And I just looked at her, and I started crying because I realized in that moment that everything that I thought made me happy was connected to whether Leah had a degree, Leah had a good paying job, who her family and friends said she was, what relationship she was in. None of that substantial stuff was making me happy. And I said no. And she asked me, do you know what it means to be happy? Do you know what you need to be happy? And I was like, no, because everything about my life in that moment was connected to people, places, and things. And then she said, so I challenge you to figure out the things that make Leah happy and then do more of that. And it was in that moment that I came to the realization that I have to now begin to live my life to only please God and do the things that make me happy. So if I can look back, I would say no longer caring about the validation and the praise of people and really focusing on who God said I was and still say I am, and then what is it that he desires for my life.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love those two questions because I think that is so important for each and every one of us. I mean, and it really, I'm sure it made you really kind of put things in perspective, like, wow. I always say sometimes it can be the most simplest things or the simplest questions that we ask ourselves that's really going to cause us to take a step back and like, you know what, I need to think about this a little bit. So that's so good. That's so good. So, on the show, it's all about growth and success. We truly like to, talk about those goals and and, those things, those tips and nuggets that's going to really help others, with their growth and success journey. So for this year, if you could share what is one of your biggest goals, with us.
Yeah. So when I came into 2021, I would say I'm a big, big fan of vision boards. And coming into this year, after spending time in prayer and meditating, I said to God that my main goal for this year was global impact. And I said, however you choose to use me, God, I'm going to be fine with it. So if it's, interviews, if it's through books, however. So my focus has been not only making global impact, but my other goal has been, I called this year, every year I try to give my year a theme. So the theme for this year is 2021 is the year of intentionality. And so I told myself I will not do anything that's not purposeful and is not with a purpose. And so this year it's all about making sure that I continue to align with the will of God. Because granted, I have financial goals, I have all those other things, but what I am learning and continuing to learn is that those things will fall into place as long as I keep doing his will, as long as I keep aligning with what it is that he desires. His word says, seek me first, the kingdom of heaven, and then all these things. So, yes, I have financial goals, and yes, I have business goals and all that, but my main focus is being intentional and making sure that everything I do, from accepting podcast interviews to, writing books, everything I do, I'm seeking the Father first. And if he gives me the green light, then it's okay, all roads ahead. But if he says, nope, that's not it, or nope, now is not the time, then I'm just going to be okay with that.
Wow, that's good. I love that intentionality. That's so good. And I love vision boards, by the way, as well. I think it's so important to, to be able to put, one, get clear on our vision and then have it up so we can see it every single day. But I love that intentionality in your focus. As you shared, I think it's so important for us to be intentional every day with what we're doing. And especially, from a spiritual, standpoint, and making sure that what we're doing, it aligns with our purpose and the greatness that's within us and who God has called us to be. So I definitely love that intentionality. So I shared in the beginning that the empowerment quote for today was, "Don't dream it, be it." Could you share with us what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So I will say when I first saw that quote, the thing that came to me was something that I always say, and that is that a goal without a deadline is just a wish. We all have goals, we all have dreams, we all have aspirations, but where we tend to fall short is that we do not set deadlines, and we just sit back and we think that it's just going to magically appear and happen, right? And it was so cool when I read "Don't Dream It, Be It," because I've been in this space over the last couple of days where what the Holy Spirit has just been saying is just be. And sometimes that is learning to be present, to be clear, to be focused, right? Just be. And I love it because I feel like it removes the pressure to feel like, oh, I have to be where everybody else wants me to be, or I have to reach a certain pinnacle in my life. And you don't. You just have to learn how to be. And sometimes being is even learning to be still so that you can hear what he has to say. And so, but I always think about when it comes to our dreams, how do we turn our dreams into reality? Well, it starts with really, one, getting clear about them, but then also, two, setting those concrete goals and giving yourself a deadline. I always think back to book writing process. People will say, oh, it's taking me 10 years to write this book. Well, why is it taking you 10 years to write this book? Well, one, probably because you're not clear about whether or not this is what you're supposed to be doing. But then two, there's a lack of discipline somewhere. dreams can happen. Dreams can turn into reality, but the way that gets there is through clarity and discipline. You can't just sit and wait for something to happen. I tell aspiring authors all the time, the book's not going to write itself. There is some action steps you actually have to do to go from dreaming to actually now being. And that's what I got when I heard that quote.
Absolutely. That's good. That's good. So if you had just one piece of advice that you would give to those that are out there listening on how they can empower their own growth and success journey, what would that be?
Yeah, I would say heal. I would say really focus on your healing, focus on your own growth and development, get clear about who you are, because then once you start to get clear about who you are, then all the other parts of your life will get clear. And I'll share a story. Just recently, I have been on this decluttering phase, and it came about because I was actually in a space where I felt like I was all over the place, and I was taking on all these different roles and responsibilities, and I had succumbed to this pressure to produce. You know, coming into this pandemic, that was the big thing that you heard people say, oh, you know, if you get out of quarantine, if you haven't produced anything, you know, you're just lazy. And so I had found myself in this place where I had been booked and busy, but I was also overwhelmed and burnt out and drained all at the same time. And so I was praying one day, and God said to me, the only reason why you're experiencing what you're experiencing is because you're carrying way too much baggage. It's time to declutter. And I didn't realize decluttering wasn't just a spiritual thing, but it was a natural thing that I had to do as well. So one weekend, I said, you know what? I'm just going to declutter my home. And when I tell you, Jaresha, I had bags of trash that had to go to my dumpster, of just things that I had been holding on, things that was connected to my past, things that, and I'm like, how did we get here? And when I released myself and decluttered, then all the other parts of my life started to like line up and got clearer. And then I got into a better space. And so that's what I would say is really take a step back and examine your life. Figure out the areas of your life that you may be experiencing some baggage. You may need to declutter. There's some things you may need to let go. And I'm learning as I'm going through this that it's in all areas of your life, right? So sometimes we hold on to friendships that no longer serve us. Sometimes we hold on to people that no longer serve us. So I'm in a space now where God is saying, I need you to let go of the things that no longer serve you, because where I'm taking you, you got to travel lightly. You can't be bogged down by all these things and then wonder why you're tired and worn out for the journey. And so that is what I would say to people.
That's so good. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think it's so fitting, you know, not just as you mentioned from a physical aspect, because, you know, we're getting ready to go into spring and everyone's thinking, oh, I need a spring clean and everything else. But there's so many different things that's a part of our life that we truly need to declutter. One of the things that I generally do, and I do this on a month-to-month basis, as I'm looking at, my connections, what I need to eliminate, or let go of, if you will, and then the growth areas. And I'm making a list. I am such a lister, and so I am making a list of those things. And as you mentioned, Leah, those things that no longer serve us, even if it's those relationships, we need to be willing to let it go and move on. So that is so good. That's so good. I thank you so much for sharing your amazing story and journey. How can we, stay connected with you and support your efforts?
Yeah, so I am pretty much on all social medias. On Facebook, I am Leah M. Forney. If you're on Instagram, it's I am Leah Michelle. If you are on LinkedIn, it's Leah Forney. If you are on Twitter, it's Leah Forney, even though I do not tweet. And then also you can always shoot me an email at authorleahmforney@gmail.com.
Awesome, awesome. And please tell us where we can actually purchase the books that you've written.
Yeah, so all my books are Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Walmart, wherever books are sold, under Leah M. Forney. So if you just put in Leah M. Forney, you can find them. If you want a signed copy, definitely shoot me an email and just put in the subject signed copy, and I will definitely get a signed copy signed and shipped out to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I truly just am so appreciative to have you as an amazing guest this evening, and thank you so much for sharing your amazing story and your journey. You truly have shared some amazing tips and nuggets this evening, so I definitely appreciate that. So listeners, if you're interested in starting your own show or being a guest on the show to share your amazing story and journey to equip, encourage, and empower others for growth and success, please email envisionb@empoweronpurpose.com. Please tune in next Wednesday where you will hear an amazing story and journey from another leader, influencer, and motivator. Until next time, be blessed.
Thank you for listening to the Empower Hour with Jaresha, where Jaresha speaks with leaders, influencers, and motivators who share their journey in personal and professional growth, empowerment tips, lessons learned, and keys of success that will empower you to your best self. Follow Jaresha on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Jaresha Moore, and visit www.empoweronpurpose.com. Remember to be intentional and be empowered, and have a great day on purpose.